All right, welcome to the Video Guys podcast, episode 2, baby.
Heck yeah.
You got Braden and Thomas here, and we're going to be talking about what cameras you should be using.
What cameras we've used,
Yeah.
why we use them, why we love them, why we hate them.
Like if you buy a Nikon.
Don't buy a Nikon.
Dude, you know what we have to talk about, actually?
What?
Is no offense to any photographers out there, but I was shooting with a photographer today.
Okay.
And guess what camera they were using?
No, the 5D Mark IV.
Dude, the 5D Mark IV. I was like, dude, what the freak? I think we already talked about this in the other episode.
It's because every freaking photographer is obsessed with that camera.
I don't understand. I'm like, it's not that, I mean, like, it's good, but I'm like, she does this professionally. She's been doing this for years. And she's using the 5D Mark IV, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like, get an R5 or something. Like,
it's not as bad if they've been doing it for years. What kills me the most is when you get some new photographer and they're just convinced that they have to get a 5D Mark IV, and I'm like, please stop. Like, do some research.
I've seen people who use a 5D Mark IV and then it will break or something. And then instead of buying and upgrading to a new camera, they just buy a 5D Mark IV, and I'm like, dude, stop.
That's hilarious.
Oh, that's funny. But so don't buy a 5D Mark IV. But yeah, dude, what do you want to talk about first?
So you sent me this video the other day.
Oh, yes.
Parker Walbeck and his go-to camera, which I put so much weight on what Parker Walbeck does, probably more than I should.
I was like, all right, I'm convinced.
But the C70,
dude,
let's talk about
it. That looks like I mean, at least after watching the video, I've done little research since then, but I was like, that's the perfect camera.
Oh, yeah.
It kind of reminds me, so one of my favorite cameras that, Thomas, you know this, but is the Blackmagic.
Yeah.
The Pocket Cinema 6K Pro. And I was like, dude, this is that camera, but everything that I hate about that camera, this camera makes up for. Like, it has autofocus. It has battery life. Like,
yeah.
And I can't remember what else I hate about it, but I remember those were two things that I was like,
well, it's got the digital stabilization.
Oh yeah, that was another thing. I was like, it has in-body stabilization, which is like, so you can go handheld with it. With the Blackmagic, it's like, if you go handheld, it looks like crap.
Looks like a freaking earthquake.
Yeah, it's like shaking, jiggling.
It's just shaking like crazy.
Dude, also, we have the video up today. I forgot to say. We have the camera last time on accident. We shot in slow motion
the entire time.
So like we just didn't want to edit it. So now you can actually see our setup that is so jank.
Yeah, someday when I'm extremely bored, I'll go back and fix that.
Just edit it one time. Episode number 1. Dude, I say I'm on the Canon website right now. It has the autofocus was insane because you can like
on the C70.
Yeah, because it'll just grab onto people's faces.
Okay, here's what's crazy to me is that the C70, its autofocus, at least from everything that I saw in the one video, which isn't saying a lot, but it's like smoother autofocus.
Dude, yeah, the autofocus was crazy.
Which I shoot a lot with the R, and it's like a lot of times the autofocus is really good. I love the R for the autofocus, but like kind of what they were talking about in the video is like it'll grab onto something and just like shoot off, and it's like, hooks onto the back wall or.
Well, okay, so I've been using, for me and Thomas, we used to work together. Now I just got a new job. The new job, we're using Sony's, and we're using the A7 III's.
Okay.
That's like the R, so it's like the R5. That autofocus is insane.
It's like really good.
It's just wild, dude. It just locks onto people's eyes, and like it does not move. And then like they could be in the corner and it's still on them. Like, so I was like,
what if they turn their head and their eye like
it just locks onto their head now? Oh. Now it like doesn't like.
See, I know like mine does pretty good. The R, when like if it locks onto someone's eye, it'll do the same thing. Like it'll lock onto their head. But I would be so interested to shoot with the Sony.
That's because I was like, dude, the R's good, and I've been using the R.
Yeah.
But the A7 III's, dude, was like, this is even better.
Really?
It's like. It's so good. Like, I was like, this is like scary good. So that's when I saw the C70, I was like, dude, that's what it reminds me of. where it just sticks on their face and like it doesn't move. And I was like, dude, that's a game changer. Like it takes so much like stress off you because you're just like, dude, it's just gonna stay on their face.
Okay, so right now, both of us are kind of invested in Canon, at least Canon glass, right?
Yeah.
Like we've got.
I would rather use a Canon just always.
So if you could go back and choose between Sony and Canon, like now that you've used a Sony a little bit,
yeah,
what would you do?
Well, dude, okay, so let me tell you, the Sony menu is atrocious.
Oh,
it is like 52 pages long.
Oh.
And it's like everything's called like something almost like a little different from Canon. So I had to watch a video in Full-Time Filmmaker and just watch it and be like, oh gosh, it was like a 23-minute video just going through the menu.
Yeah.
And I watched the whole thing and I learned everything about the menu, which was great, but it's like a lot of stupid things. So that's like really sucks. The UI like interface, it's just not as good. But the camera, like what it produces, it's wild, dude. It's like really, the low light thing is amazing. S-Log is awesome.
I mean, you know that
it's shooting at 10-bit, like,
okay, that's
and I can
sweet.
go all the way to 120 frames at 4K, and like I haven't had a problem editing the footage. It's been great. So like, I mean, I've been loving the camera. Other than like the settings are just atrocious.
You know that I'm like an absolute born skeptic. Like I'm skeptical of everything. Maybe not everything, but a lot of things, you know?
Yeah.
And a lot of people that use Sony or Nikon or whatever, they'll be like, oh, this interface is like, you know, it's really easy to use and Canon sucks. And I use Canon and I look at those other interfaces and I'm like, oh, they suck. But I try and look at it objectively and I'm like, okay, honestly though, I cannot see how anybody thinks just like objectively that the Sony interface is easier than a Canon.
No, I mean like as you get deeper into Canons, like more of their like bigger cameras, the menu gets more confusing, of course, because there's more settings.
Yeah.
But it's still simpler. The Sony has like, oh my gosh, dude, it's like a menu. First off, it looks ugly. And then it's a menu and a menu. And then sometimes there's like other things. And it's just like, dude, it's bad. Like it is so confusing.
I feel like Canon is the Apple of like the
well, I would actually say
or the
DJI
camera world.
and like Blackmagic more Apple, where there's only like so many settings. Then Canon's next best, and then Android is like Sony, where once you figure it out, I hear it's great.
Oh yeah,
but like, dude, Sony has just things that are just like stupid. It's like some of the settings, and I'm just like, I would never touch this.
Yeah.
Whereas like at least Canon makes it a lot more simple.
Yeah, I feel like Canon, you can get into the menu and you can like find these nitty gritty details and you can change a ton about the camera. I don't know if you can change like if it's the same as Sony.
You can change.
I feel like it's just an easier interface.
But some of the things are like stupid. It's like, why would I ever change that? That like it was like okay, this button that's about autofocusing is actually in like a different part of the menu that's not about autofocus. That's just about like the interface of the camera. And it's
just wanted to put it there just in case.
Like touching the screen. And if you touch the screen and tap on someone's face, then the focus will just stay on there. And it's like, or you can switch it to just tap to focus, where you tap it and it will focus and it will go away. Or you can turn that off. And it's like, why would I ever turn it off? That like, of course, when I tap on it, I just want it to stay on their face. Why is that not on the autofocus menu? And it's like deep in this whole other menu. It's so dumb. Sorry. And so like Sony's menu is so ridiculously complicated, and half the stuff that it's just like in Full-Time Filmmaker, they're like, just don't even touch it. Just leave it. You actually like at the start, you can have saved menus. So I just saved all the things I want in a menu. And like, that's what like, which would be more like a Canon menu where it's just like, you can find stuff.
Yeah, the stuff you'd actually use.
So the menu actually is like atrocious. Low light is like amazing on it, and the pictures
on the Sony.
Yeah,
I've heard that the low light is really good.
It's wild, dude.
Is it because is that the one that has the it's the 12 megapixel sensor? Is the A7 III?
So dude, it's the A7 III's, and I keep getting confused because I'm like, what is this compared to a Canon? The A7 III is like the R. Okay. The A7 III's is like the R5. So it has like 14.5 stops of dynamic range, like, or maybe it's 16 stops. I can't remember. The dynamic range is ridiculous. The autofocus is like insane. I can't remember all this stuff, but because I'm still learning it, it's been like an adjustment because I'm switching over to Sony. But
yeah,
it is really good. Like the picture quality and stuff has been amazing. Also, this is not about a camera, but we have Ronins, and dude, the Xeon Crane sucks. Ronins are way better.
Really?
Well, the Xeon Crane's
I've kind of thought that might be the case. So it says the A7S, the A7S III. Is that what you guys have?
A7S III, yeah.
Okay.
It's like $3,500.
Yeah, that's what this says, and it is a 12 megapixel camera.
Okay.
So that's I've heard that because it's less megapixels, it actually like optimizes the megapixels, which allows them to capture more light. Whereas like the R5 has a 45 megapixel full frame sensor, which is just like insane. Yeah. But it's like I don't actually totally understand it, but it's
if I was like, I mean, photo wise, the A7 III's is poopy. It's not, it's like a video camera. Like it's built for all like video pretty much. But I mean, like I'm not gonna lie, it's a pretty awesome camera. But I think if like I grabbed the R5, I'd think the exact same thing. Yeah. Because the R5's autofocus, I heard, is like, if not as good, just like if it's not as good, it's like maybe a little worse. Yeah. I think they're actually the exact same. Like their autofocus.
I've been thinking about the R6 because it's this. I don't necessarily want to drop the money on my ideal camera right now. I think would be
C70.
The R5, the R5C.
Okay.
It's like the cinema version of the R5.
Yeah, which is a lot of money.
But yeah, I'm like, I don't know. I don't know if I want to drop like $5 or $6 on a body right now. And so I've been thinking about getting the R6, but I've heard rumors like of the R6 overheating as well. I know the R5
I think it does overheat still. I think it doesn't overheat as bad, but it does overheat still.
Would it?
Which I think that A7S III does overheat, but
okay.
I haven't had it overheat on me yet, but I haven't shot on it enough to know.
See, I know I shot with this. I've never had problems with any of the cameras I've used overheating, but I shot weddings with this one photographer. And
were they using a 5D Mark IV?
No, she was actually using a Sony. And I remember like she'd be like shooting, and then she would like turn around and like look at her camera, and she'd be like, okay, 1 second. And it was because her camera was overheating. And so she'd like have to like pause and wait for the camera to like cool down. Luckily it would happen pretty quick. And then she could keep shooting. But I was like, that's crazy. I was like, I would never use a camera, like how unreliable. And that was like one of my first impressions of Sony was like, they're like super unreliable.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But now the R5 has taken the cake as far as like being unreliable. It's just like this little
that's the most
box.
Unreliable camera I've heard.
What's that?
I think the R5 is the most unreliable camera when it comes to like you only can shoot for so long and things like that.
Although if you're going winter camping, take it because at least it would keep you warm.
Keep you warm, exactly.
Just turn it on. It's like a little oven.
Oh my gosh. Dude, yeah, the Sony's been like really interesting to use, and I think if the R5 has that, which it seems like the C70 had that kind of autofocus. I'm sorry if my stomach is rumbling.
No, you're good.
The C70, but like because the C70 seemed like it had that same autofocus. Plus, did you see you can switch it from like C-Log 3 to C-Log 2 or whatever in post?
Okay, how does that even? He said that you can change the color temperature in post. Is that just because you're shooting?
Yeah.
Like you're shooting at such a raw level that it allows you to change like any of those settings in
honestly,
post.
I don't even know how half the things on that camera would work, but you could switch it from like, oh, I don't want to do C-Log 3, I want to do C-Log 2. Yeah. And I need to change all the white balance stuff. You can just do that. Like, what the heck? That's awesome.
Okay, but those file sizes must be freaking massive.
True.
I don't know if that's true, but
I was also going to say that that you can use. It's nice that you could use EF lenses on it still, and RF lenses.
So is that just you can use EF lenses with the adapter?
Yeah, with the adapter, which makes it full frame.
Yeah.
I don't know how that works again, but it gives you a wider angle, so you can still have some wide angle. Like you just have the option, whereas like on the Blackmagic, I'm just stuck. I had to use like a crappier lens to get a wider angle.
Yeah. Dude, so of the cameras that you've used up to this point, which one has been your favorite that you've actually owned or shot with regularly?
My favorite?
Yeah.
Well, Blackmagic is probably my favorite.
Yeah.
Because, you know, I just love it.
Yeah.
But, dude, let me tell you, it is nice to have autofocus again. So the Sony's been pretty nice.
Oh, sweet.
But I also, like, all those, it's been hard because it's, like, gone on longer. And now all the cameras have gotten better. So, like, I was shooting on a 6D Mark II. Loved that camera. And then realized there's greater things out there. You know, like I couldn't afford, that was like when the R came out, and I was like, I'll just buy a 60 Mark II right now. The R was like sketchy at first, and then all of a sudden now it's like everyone like loved it. So I bought a 60 Mark II just because it was in my budget. And I loved that camera, and then I switched over to Blackmagic and I loved that camera. And then years have gone on, and now there's like the R5 and A7S3. Yeah. And so now I'm using that. I'm like, dude, the cameras have just gotten better. So it's hard. It's been hard because there's like things I loved about every camera, but they like, now those things I've loved have been getting to like the newer cameras. And I'm like,
it's funny. Nice. A lot of the changes in some of the newer cameras, I think for us, those changes are massive. They're they're so exciting. But I think for a lot of people, it's not as exciting. Today we're actually, backfilling Braden's position that he left from. So we were looking through candidates, and I didn't realize. I mean, we had a number of candidates, but I didn't realize, just looking at like different portfolios and stuff, that like, man, it really is. I mean, as long as you have this kind of base level of camera and some, and skill level, that's what goes the furthest. And then as you get into like, years of filming, then those little details in cameras start to make a difference. Yeah. But I think back, like, what is the base level? If you had a friend or someone that you knew was getting into filmmaking, and they're like, okay, I just want, like, what's the base level camera that you're like, that camera is good enough to go out and actually make something, or like start a business, making videos, do something professional?
I mean, for me, I think it depends what you're shooting. One, like what camera I'd buy. But I would, like, my always go-to recommendation is the EOS RP. Because it's a full frame camera that's like $800. And then you don't have to buy all like the EFS lenses, like the not full frame lenses. You can buy all full frame lenses, and then, which you would use forever.
Yeah,
and
that's more like a long term.
I think you get the best bang for your buck for something like that.
Also with the RP, it's like, even if you do upgrade quite a bit from the RP and you start getting all these, more cinema cameras and stuff, the RP, I mean, you can sell it. It's going to have great resale value. Yeah. But also you're going to be able to use it for such a long time. Like, even if you decide not to sell it, like, it's a great backup camera regardless, because it's this full frame.
Yeah. So you could have another camera and use that as a second camera. Yeah. For sure. And like, I would definitely use that as a second camera. Yeah. Like, it's very reliable. That's my always go-to. I think you would probably say the same thing though, right?
Yeah. That's typically the camera that I recommend to people that are like kind of starting out, but they're serious about starting out. Yeah. Recently though, I would actually potentially recommend the 80D to people, because the 80D...
Wait, how come the 80D over the RP?
Not necessarily over the RP. But almost like, because it's a crop sensor camera. Yeah. And just how cheap it is. Yeah. Like, you can pick it up for like, I think like $500.
Really? If you get it used. You could do it that much.
And it's really a pretty, like, it's a decent camera, and it's good enough that you could potentially get professional quality off of it.
Oh yeah.
I still think, what's that?
I mean, I shot on I don't remember what it's called. My first camera. Let me look it up. But like, that did 1080p I think it only did 720 at 60. So I was shooting in 720, and I did professional stuff with that.
Oh, nice.
And
yeah.
like I don't know if you totally know.
That's same. I can't remember the first camera I shot with.
I just can't remember what it's called.
But the ADD also shoots 1080 at 60 frames per second, which is pretty good.
Yeah. If you have 1080 at 60 frames, like I think you're good. Yeah. And what the ADD, like you said, does.
Yeah. But that's actually been a very new thing for me that I was like looking at some ADDs and I was like, dang, these are actually decent cameras.
Yeah, like I know like there's the M50 and stuff like that.
The M50,
I don't think it's worth it.
I would stay away from the M50 because
I think you get a better camera for better money. Yeah. Like the ADD or like you get the RP.
Yeah, I'm not super convinced on the M50. I'd have to do a little bit more research, but it seems like this super like kind of niche camera. Also, does the M50, does it have a screen that like articulates? Like, does it rotate?
I think so.
Okay.
That's cool. Buddy had an M50 and I wasn't impressed.
Really?
Like I was like, I feel like you paid a lot of money for something that was like, you probably could have paid the same amount of money or paid a little bit more for something like way better.
Yeah. Well, and that you bring up a good point with the RP that it's like, well, you might just forego the 80 ADD and just get an RP and you'd be better off.
Like if I was starting out, I would have got an RP right away because I'm like, well, it's cheap and I mean, it's like the R. It's so similar to the R. And then like I can get, sorry, my stomach, holy cow. And like I can start getting full frame lenses because like when I had my first camera, which this is blanking out of me what it's called. It is an old camera, but you can like, I had to buy all these EFS lenses. And then I didn't know when I got the 60 Mark II that those lenses don't work on there. So like with the RP, I could just start getting full frame lenses. I could just start getting nicer lenses that will last because lenses last so long.
Yeah.
Like the person I was shooting with today, they're using a 24-70. I was like, I don't even know if that's the newest version. I think it's one of the older ones, but I was like, you wouldn't know because it stays, like lenses just aren't good for so long.
Well, and it's like, I have a couple Sigma lenses that I've had for a few years and I still hear people talk about them as like, oh, this is like one of the nicest lenses. And it's like, it's a couple years old. Well, like, and it's still just so nice.
Yeah. I mean like the Tamron 24-70 is what I use all the time.
Yeah.
And like that thing's a couple years old.
Yeah.
And like, we just bought some more at work. Cause I was just like, it's just a great deal. Like, I was like, why not?
This is a little bit, it's actually not a full frame lens, but we were talking about the Sigma 18-35.
Yeah, which I hear
kind of this beast of a lens that's like, it's super versatile and like, it's just it's so logical to get that kind of that focal length and that lens. And I know a lot of people, especially on like the Super 35 cameras, like they'll have like a red, this like $30,000 camera. I've
seen a lot of people use it with like cinema cameras because you usually can't get like most cinema cameras usually aren't full frame. They're Super 35. So I've seen like people's Black Magics with reds using the 18-35 like is like a great option.
Yeah. So we were talking about the C70 at the beginning, and what would be the difference? What is the difference between the C70 and the R5C? I think
so as I was looking. The R5C shoots like an 8K and stuff.
Okay.
The C70 doesn't. The C70 has like ND filters, XLR jacks.
Yeah, we didn't even talk about the built-in. The C70 has built-in ND filters.
Yeah, which is so nice.
That is an absolute game changer.
Oh, yeah.
Because like nobody, like so often I'll just crank my shutter speed. Because I'm like, dude, I don't have an ND filter for every situation. Or like, even if I do, it's like sometimes the lighting changes. If you're outside, lighting changes and you're like, I just got to get the shot.
Yeah.
And so you'll crank the shutter speed.
Yeah.
And it's like, if you just had a built-in ND filter, oh my gosh, that would be so nice.
Like, it's fixed. Yeah. I mean, the built-in ND filters, that's super nice. I think battery life is a lot better.
Okay. Yeah.
I think you can plug in like XLR cables and things like that.
Oh yeah, you can get just freaking clean audio.
Yeah,
on
which is like,
everything.
I don't think you can do that. You can't take pictures on the C70.
You say you cannot?
No, it's just a cinema camera.
Okay. I think for me, my go-to camera, like my ideal camera right now would be the R5C, because I do enough photography that
you do.
it just makes sense. And I also do enough like in the mountains that hauling a C70 up there would be difficult.
See, the thing I thought that was cool about the C70 is I was like, oh, it's reminds me so much of a Blackmagic.
Oh yeah.
But it has like autofocus.
Yeah.
And like, better battery life. And I was like, and it almost seems like smaller where I could still use it in like a lot of different scenarios. Whereas like I can't use a Blackmagic in certain scenarios.
It's got like the luxuries of like a normal SLR or something, but it's also got the capabilities of a full like cinema camera.
Yeah, exactly. But like, I mean, the R5C is like, I weirdly haven't feel like I've heard a ton about it, but it is a wild camera. Like, has all the great things about the R5, but
here's a crazy thing. I think the R5C is like it's like $5,000.
Okay.
I think, right?
So the C70 is $5,500. And
it's like only $500 more. That's crazy for like a full cinema camera.
Yeah.
So and thinking about it, only $5,500 for a cinema camera. That is incredible.
I say it looks like you can buy an R5C for $4,800.
Oh wow. So I'm gonna go home and buy an R5C.
I say now I'm trying to look. So you can do 8K at 60 RAW. There's nonstop recording. I don't know if the C70 has that or not.
There's nonstop recording on the R5C?
Yes, at 8K.
Oh, gosh, that's nice. Except for, okay, realistically, unless you're shooting a movie, when do you use 8K?
When I hear people saying they're shooting 8K, I was like, that just sounds unnecessary.
Yeah.
Like, if anything past 4K, I'm just like, it just sounds unnecessary. Unless I'm shooting just a huge project.
Oh, yeah. And like, unless I'm shooting a movie.
Yeah, like the Blackmagic can do 6K RAW, and then it will shoot 12-bit instead of 10-bit. It's like, oh, yeah, like if I was shooting a really, really big project, that is the only time I would ever use that. Other than that, I'm fine with 10-bit, 4K at ProRes. Like, that's totally fine.
Yeah. Yeah. How often do you actually shoot in 4K? Because
now at the new job, we only shoot in 4K.
Okay, nice.
But before that, you and I only shot. Well, that's another thing about nice about the Blackmagic is we can shoot 1080p at like the least...
like the least compressed.
Yeah, so it was like we could zoom in and stuff with it too.
And it still looked just nice.
Yeah, and it didn't take as much up space, so like, which we couldn't, do.
Yeah. I sometimes, I think 1080 is like, it's phasing out a little bit, but the thing is, you can't tell that much especially on a phone or even on a computer. You can't tell very much. And so it just doesn't make that big of a difference. And it's almost just worth shooting 1080 a lot of times still for most, or at least a lot of situations.
That I'm looking at this, the R5C is pretty much, I mean, it's so similar. I just don't know if you get that, like, if you can use EF lenses on it. There's like a workaround with the XLR cable. I don't know if the autofocus is the exact same.
I assume that with the R5C, you can use the EF lenses on it because it's full frame and
I would assume so.
It's got the, it would be the same adapter that you use on like the R or the R5.
Yeah, maybe the R5C is better. I mean, I probably have to watch more videos, but I was like, they look so similar to me.
We're winning him over. Just kidding.
I mean, I still love Canon.
Honestly, they're all great cameras. And even though, like earlier we were talking about, if what's the minimum that you need to shoot professional video?
Yeah.
But if I'm being completely honest, for a lot of situations, you could use a lot less than an 80D.
Yeah.
And still come out with something that,
for sure,
if you have the right techniques, people aren't going to notice in a lot of cases, or maybe most cases.
Well, I think that's why I kind of fell in love with Blackmagic, because it wasn't a lot of money and I could get a lot of high stuff I wanted.
Yeah.
And I knew I could perform to get where you might not be able to tell. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, okay, I can go without autofocus because I could still get the shot. You know what I mean? So, like, I think that's why I loved Blackmagic. But if I was to go, like, I feel like Blackmagic was a step, and I would go past that with, like, other cameras that are, like, better now. But, I mean, if Blackmagic came out with another camera that was better, I mean, I'd definitely be checking it out, of course. I mean, like, anyone. Like, another camera I was like, we have to talk about is the Ronin 4D, which is, like, I've never used a Ronin camera.
Oh, my gosh. That camera is, it's like $7,000?
Yeah.
And
this
like,
camera's like wild, dude. Like,
for anyone who's wondering, like $7,000, yeah, that's expensive for a camera, but for in the world of cinema cameras and like professional shooting, $7,000 is pretty cheap.
Yeah,
and,
I mean, this shoots 8K, 75 frames, 4K at 120. You can shoot in ProRes, you can shoot in RAW. It's also a stabilizer. It is a full frame sensor.
It's just everything you could ever want.
It's a lot of, I mean, it's got 14.5 stops of dynamic range, which is just great.
Is it built by DJI?
Yeah, so you know it's great.
Oh, dude.
There's
DJI
a cheaper version
just
for
the most
6K.
incredible stuff recently.
Dude, they have some wild stuff. I mean, so there's a 6K version, so you can shoot 6K at 60, which is wild. 4K at 120. Your ISO, like, I mean, it's not going to be as high. It's got native ISO at 805,000. And then the 8K is 804,000. So, I mean, it's not going to be great in low light, but I don't think that's really what this camera's built for, you know?
Yeah. I mean, if you're shooting what this is built for, which is like a set, you know, you're going to have light.
Well, that's
or
the thing.
At least you're going to have enough light.
Some of the stuff for like the set is like wild. Like the focusing, like it has ND filters built in as well.
Oh gosh. Dude, I got to get one of these cameras with the ND filters built in.
Filters? What? I'm pretty sure you can use like a bunch of different, you can do different mounts. Oh, wow. You can put on just like any mount here. That's wild. But you can use it like wirelessly. So it's like great for sets where like you could like, someone could be fixing all the focus stuff. And then there's like, dude, the transmission autofocus thing was just wild. I don't even know how to explain it. You have to just go look it up. The autofocus thing is just crazy. But just that you're like on a 4-axis stabilization thing. You don't have to buy a gimbal. And you also have this like 8K camera.
Yeah.
Like that's wild.
Does it come with a lens?
I think it comes with a 35 millimeter lens.
So it comes with the lens, the camera, the stabilizer. Like, yeah, that's a great price.
Just go on their page. There's like, this thing is wild. Like someone, if you're listening and want to, I mean, you can take stuff off, you can build it all different ways. The promo video for it is just insane. The 6K version is $6,800. The 8K version is $12,000. Just wild. What a good camera. Honestly.
Do you think with the price of cinema cameras coming down, do you think we're going to start seeing more like homemade films shot on just insane, like cinema cameras essentially?
I don't know, because the problem with cinema cameras is you buy the cinema camera and then there's so much expenses that come after a cinema camera.
Oh yeah.
Like so many like little gadgets that you have to buy. Like, I mean, like on DJI's website.
Operating a cinema camera is more difficult than a regular camera. Like you don't even know.
Like there's all these things on here that you would probably need that are like extras. $800, $400, $1,700. That's like, most of the time when I see those, I'm like, oh, you probably don't need them. With the cinema camera, it's like, you actually do need them.
Yeah.
You know, you're like, you kind of do need that actually.
It's like building out when you see people build out like a Red, and they're like, oh, I have to buy a screen.
like and the screens are so expensive. Like everything with Red is so expensive. Like, I mean, even to build out my Blackmagic, I had to buy all these little things so I could plug in an SSD, so I could plug in like all these things, or else it's like, I mean, you can use it, but it's not as good. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know. I would see more people. I'd be curious to see if mirrorless cameras like come down in price.
Yeah. I think they will.
Because they're like, I mean, I don't know. Mirrorless cameras are interesting because, like, you can buy something like an R5 or like an A7S3, and like, I mean, you're getting some quality that you could get on a cinema camera, but it's just like different situations why you would buy that over a cinema camera. Because cinema cameras are going to be better for like on-set things, and like they have all these features for that. Kind of like if you were buying a what is it? What were we talking about? The Canon
the R5C or the C70?
C70. Like, you're probably going to use that for a lot of different situations than you would use for like an R5C.
Yeah.
You're probably going to be more like on sets than with an R5C. You're like, I have a cinema camera, but I also can go take pictures.
Yeah, it's kind of like a run and gun.
Yeah, run and gun, which is like totally different what you'd be filming compared to like a C70.
Which is kind of, I guess that's partially why I'm thinking, like, for me, the style that I shoot a lot of times is run and gun.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, that's why I think the R5C would be like my ideal camera, because it's a run and gun, like high end camera.
And I mean, that's why like the new job I'm at, I was like, dude, there's no way we could pull off cinema cameras half the time, because like it's so run and gun with a lot of the stuff we're doing, which is kind of exciting and fun. And I like that. So I was like, it's kind of fun to go back to from where we were using like some cinema cameras when we were working together to now some mirrorless cameras. And like, it's kind of fun to go back and like where it's like in a different style of filmmaking. Yeah. I love both for different reasons, but you know,
all cameras have their perks.
Yeah.
Except for Nikon. Just kidding.
Yeah. If you're buying a Nikon, just unsubscribe from the podcast. I don't know how that works.
I don't even know why we hate Nikon so much. It's just we can all find common ground just picking on one camera brand.
Dude, well, here's the thing. Like, if you're doing photo, I think Nikon's fine. For video, though, I feel like they try to compete, and it's just like, oh, yeah, that came out for Canon like 5 years ago, a camera like that.
I think part of it is that I've never known a filmmaker who uses Nikon.
Oh, yeah, that's true, too.
And maybe I'll meet someone soon, probably, now that I've said this.
Like, I think Blackmagics are a little bit more rare.
Yeah.
And you hear people, like, if they say Blackmagics, they know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And they're used to different things. But Nikon? What specialty do they have?
They never hear about Nikon.
No. Just so bad. Oh, man. But yeah, dude, I say that's, if whatever stage you're at, there's going to be different cameras you're looking for. Make sure, like, really focus on, like, what you're filming. Research, like, different cameras are going to be better for different situations.
Yep.
Like, if you're shooting a wedding compared to shooting like commercial stuff, you might need different stuff. Like, your gear's going to change, obviously, and so your camera might change. And then also, like, what stage are you at? Are you starting out, or are you like 5 years in?
Yeah.
Like, what is your next steps you're going to grow into? Because that's going to depend on the camera.
And I think one more pro tip that I think both of us can kind of agree on is that look at, when you're buying a camera, look at the versatility and the resale value of the camera. That's true. Because you can spend a lot of money on a camera and not really lose a lot because of the resale value.
Well, because it is, like we said, lenses last a really long time. Cameras don't as much. Yeah. So after a couple of years, it's nice to just resell that to someone. So, I mean, even if you're looking, might not be bad if you're like trying to upgrade from your first camera, look for something that's used. Because I buy so much stuff used. And it's great. Yeah. Like, it'll be like $1,000, $500 cheaper. And I got the same thing, And they're usually like new or just like in great condition. Like, usually like Amazon or other people will clean them up, and they're honestly just as good. I've never had a problem with them.
Sometimes I'll even like on shoots, I've like looked at buying used cameras and then using them for a shoot or two or whatever, and then selling them.
Oh, really?
And I don't lose any money, but it's cheaper than like trying to rent one or something. No,
it probably
like
is, honestly.
In the long term.
Maybe you'll make money.
Yeah. Well, sometimes that has been the case.
Yeah.
So
then it works out great.
Anyway.
Well, thank you guys so much. I'm sorry, my stomach, I think it was rumbling in the mic the whole podcast. So if that's the case, I'm so sorry. Yeah, thanks so much for listening, guys.
Thanks for listening.
I don't know who's listening, but if you are, thank you, and I hope you enjoyed it.
And if you made it to this point, wow, we'll probably buy you lunch or something. Yeah. Just kidding.
Oh man, yeah. If you enjoyed, just if you have any questions, hit us up on the IGs.
Yep,
message us. I don't know, and whatever. But yeah.
Okay.
We'll see you later.
Peace.
Peace.